So here's how we explain it. Thursday is a day. It's Thanksgiving.
Eat lots of pie.
It's a day?
Let's envision it's 11:59 p.m. 1 minute later, it's gonna feel like it's Thursday, but it's technically Friday,
right?
Depending on where you live.
Right.
But where we live, where we are right now, when it clicks over and it becomes technically Friday, but it still feels like Thursday night, Black Friday is live at sharpentheaxeco.com. Every single thing on the site is 20 to 80% off. That includes all of the new stuff that you're seeing right now on YouTube. We get a lot of good shit. We get a lot of good new shit that will be on sale right when we start. And then everything else in the store will be in those, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% off tiers. Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house.
Yo.
Phase 3 is underway. We are in the midst of test week right now. We are in the future or the past. I'm not really sure.
It's unclear.
No one knows. The space-time continuum is something that we'll cover in another episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interested.
Very
It's going to be
interesting.
Hunter's favorite podcast ever.
I need a 5-minute heads up for that, though.
Just 5 minutes?
Just 5.
That's all you need? 5?
Yeah.
So test week is interesting because sometimes on the spot whether you're improving or you're sort of setting down that baseline and that standard to then go in and retest. And one of the things that Hunter pointed out before we hit record was people seeing accidental 5K row PRs.
Yeah,
Oops.
the row test for any unindoctrinated listeners, 400 cals for men, 360 for women is the aerobic row test for the phase. And we spent a good bit of time talking about that on the Phase 3 podcast and kind of like
Hit pause, go find it.
Yeah, go find it. Well, wait until after this is over, then go find it and listen to it.
Listen back to back.
Listen to it back to back. But we kind of harped on the importance of bitch work at this point kind of in the season. So I don't know if it's a combination of folks. I'm sure it's a good combination of Phase 3 starting, kind of a new training phase, the excitement's there, maybe heeding that advice and taking it a little bit more seriously than you might otherwise, or maybe it's just maybe you haven't rode a 5K in a really long time, and then when you toggle over from calories per hour to per 500 meters, you were like, no shit.
Oops.
There we are. Yeah, oops. Accidentally PR'd my 5K despite looking at a different
It's no
metric.
different than when we've got someone else in the gym that's struggling with a special topic. That's going to be the basis for this whole podcast, where you don't show them what weights you're putting on the bar, or the old Cody Mooney trick. The first time I ever had a one-on-one session with Cody when he was in high school, he PR'd his snatch by like 30 pounds because I was using the kilo plates, and he failed to even recognize that the colors were matching, and basically just a pound or two off. He just doesn't care. He's indifferent. He is indifferent.
I don't know if either of those are right.
So yeah, I think that's cool. Just a perspective shift, essentially, to show you what you're capable of, and sometimes we need shit like that.
It kind of begs the question, like what sort of unconscious, like, because if you PR'd your 5K while looking at a different screen, what associations do those numbers have? If you PR'd it on the cals per hour, you're looking at calories per hour for 20 minutes, whatever it was, you switch, and then if we told you to row 5K and you're looking at your pace per 500 meters, there's obviously some sort of deep down negative association that you have with a certain number on the rower. It's like, yeah, my 5K PR pace is this, and I don't think that I could go faster than this, but like you look at cals per hour for a similar amount of time, it's like, I don't fucking know. I'm going as hard as I can. There's a little bit of the ignorance is bliss, maybe even a little bit of like the beginner sort of mindset of like, I don't know. I have no fucking idea what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm just going to try as hard as I can and finish it as fast as I can. And look what happened.
I have a deep math question here, maybe not answerable without the calculators.
No,
but what is 1 second on a 500 meter split? What is the equivalent to calories per hour? Like, does that, obviously the metric is expanded
I would say
to a certain
around
point.
Like 25 cals.
I believe that it is enough that so my idea here is I love the assault bikes that count the partial calories. So if I'm rowing and I am just dying to stay at a 144 and I keep fluctuating to a 145 or a 146, it feels bigger than your calories per hour fluctuating by
how much bigger is a 1 second change versus 25 calories or something
right. And obviously I don't get any better, I don't get fitter, my muscle fibers don't change when I get on an assault bike that counts partial calories, but just having this idea of when you're really in the mud and it's not, you feel like it's never going to tick over, but you're on the, like the other day when we were doing the assault bike jumping lunge, that was lovely. Thank you, Sharp.
You're welcome.
If anybody wants an at-home burner, if you've got, I'm going to scale this up for the monsters out there, but I would say every 3 minutes for 5 or 6 sets, 15 calorie assault bike, 30 jumping lunges. It's a stimulus.
Ugh.
Throw that out there.
Good for a round.
It's special.
I missed it, didn't hear it, can't do it.
So yeah, it's like we tried not to have the segue to our topic of the day happen, but it's already happening within this. So basically phase 3 has started. It's exciting. People are doing well. There's that reinvigoration of like, we got a new bias, there's new tests, there's new, changes to what we're doing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think hitting that refresh button every 5 to 7 weeks is the type of thing that keeps an athlete interested.
100%. I think the conversation I had with my athletes leading up to the phase, kind of as phase 2 is winding down and phase 3 is getting ready to, what's coming, what are we focusing on? And a lot of athletes are trying to get a hold of me to ask specific questions of like, what number am I trying to get? Something we don't do on our website is like put out like your score should be exactly between 15 and 17 minutes for this training piece. So one of the conversations I have with a lot of my athletes is we are establishing essentially where we are currently with our fitness, knowing that we've just worked on something for the last 7 weeks. And a lot of that fitness that we developed over the last 7, 14, however long you've been following for is going to carry over to this test. But it doesn't mean that we don't count, scrub the slate clean and then look at it again and go, all right, this is where we're at. Let's use this information to make sure that we train for the next 6 weeks, that when retest week comes back around again, we've made very specific changes in these things. And the way our season goes and the way our programming goes is we try to build on previous established strength maxes, baseline conditioning with certain movements. And then we want that adaptation to occur and allow us to exceed and excel in other tests. And that's the biggest point I like to make to athletes early on with the test week is they can get wrapped around the axle that they put up a score and it's not as good as somebody else's. And all I say to that athlete is, hey, we are establishing where you are right now. That doesn't mean it's where you're going to be in 7 weeks. So let's figure out where you are and what we can do to make the biggest change over the next 7 weeks. And for a lot of athletes, that's how you should spend that time on Saturday and Sunday this week or wherever in the future or the past, I don't know. But at the end of the test week, you need to go in there and ask yourself, honestly, like, take as much information that you gathered from that week and make a game plan moving forward. One of the things I talked to with one of my athletes, Holly Holgerson, been working with me for 5 years plus now. And one of the things that he does a really nice job of is not only does he record his scores, he records how he breaks things up, where he noticed that his heart rate jumped really high, how he transitioned. He has so much data on himself that, I tell an athlete when they go to retest week, like, tell me why you think you should retest this. He's got 15 bullet points of why he thinks it's important. And to me, that's an athlete taking ownership over, hey, here's where I am. I worked really hard and here are the reasons why I want to do this again. And this is what I'm hoping to gain from this experience.
Isn't Holly Loki like genius mode?
Yeah.
Didn't we find that out?
Yeah, he's very smart.
So we met him when he was a teenager and you get in his car and he takes you on the scariest drive you've ever been on in your life to go get meatballs at IKEA. He's doing donuts and all the things that we would have done when we were his age.
That car was tiny.
You get a certain idea of who someone is as a person, and then it's like, oh, by the way, he
just likes to send me YouTube links without any context or even a, hey, how's it going?
That's how you talk shit in Iceland,
yeah.
Dick.
I guess, yeah, probably. He's like, hey, I beat you. You don't even rate a hello. Just watch this YouTube video. Schmuck.
So if you're watching on YouTube right now, if you're one of the 596 people that watches on YouTube, or the thousands of people that listen, you can click over to YouTube, get a little preview. All three of us are wearing Black Friday exclusives. Sherb and I are wearing Misfit gear. Hunter's rocking the Sharp hoodie over there.
would have been real.
This is, I mean, it's an advertisement, but it's not, because if you don't get your ass to the site at midnight Eastern, you're not gonna get as much
Is that
stuff.
midnight Friday or Saturday or
All right,
Tuesday?
so here's how we explain it. Thursday is a day. It's Thanksgiving.
Eat lots of pie.
It's a day.
Let's envision it's 11:59 p.m. 1 minute later, it's gonna feel like it's Thursday, but it's technically Friday,
Right.
depending on where you live. Dun, dun, dun.
Right.
But where we live, where we are right now, when it clicks over and it becomes technically Friday, but it still feels like Thursday night, Black Friday is live at sharpentheaxeco.com. Every single thing on the site is 20 to 80% off. That includes all of the new stuff that you're seeing right now on YouTube. We get a lot of good shit. We get a lot of good new shit that will be on sale right when we start. And then everything else in the store will be in those, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% off tiers.
I can confirm right now, if you are more than like 10 minutes late to that drop, you will be SOL, because I sit on my computer.
Yeah,
and I
our
watch.
sales graph is
It's insane.
goes straight up until it goes straight down and then gets a little bit more linear. But you get that first spike, people are getting after it. People get after it to the point where they go in and they buy the new stuff, and then they go to bed, and then you see them order again the next morning for the old stuff.
I don't gems in there too. Like when we say old stuff, we don't mean bad stuff. We mean just stuff that released earlier in the year that, maybe you were like, I'm hesitant to get, but now it's 60, 70, 80% off.
And one thing that a lot of people typically don't do because they're scared that their stuff's going to sell out is they don't take the time to search for the Easter eggs. So stuff that we've sold out that everyone's like, why the hell aren't you restocking this? We will take the pads that we have to make sure we can do returns and exchanges and stuff like that, put it back into the store. So take the time to click through the tiers, because you're going to find some gems in there. And then I have fun with it. So when I'm doing the discount tiers, I'll basically go in and say, well, there's only a few of these, and I remember people really wanted them. So I'll bury those bad boys down
what
in
do we got for
70
what do we
or
got
80%
for bottoms?
off.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
What's that?
What do we got for
So,
pantalones?
I mean,
That's
we
Spanish for
can
pants.
talk about it. We've got brand spanking new Suffer running shorts. When we released the first pair of running shorts, everyone was super excited
Right.
about that.
Oh yeah, those. I tried to steal those.
Yep,
Kevin
you
got
tried
them.
to steal those. So we have those in a solid color. We'll tease that to put that out there. And then in terms of joggers, yoggers, and coaches pants, things like that, a lot of those ones that did potentially sell out in the past are brought back into the store. So
Sprinkled throughout.
they're sprinkled throughout. So make sure you go in and check that out. And then, again, not an ad, just being your friendly neighborhood. I don't know. I'm like the honey.com plugin. Proper Fuel does
My own personal
one
honey.com
sale
plugin.
a year. One single one. Small company, just getting started. We're not going to put stuff on sale. You'll notice that there are no discount codes out there that work for more than, sort of that first, like, let us show you that you're going to love this stuff. So 25% off site wide. And then proper is 25%
Fuck, when's the last time you
off.
saw protein on sale?
site wide. November of last year.
Okay.
Got it.
And then you'll see it on social media at Proper Fuel. We are testing out a new single serve protein flavor that's going to be even more discounted beyond the 25% off right off the bat. So if you would like, if you're into the dark chocolate vibe, something that's a little bit more, I guess I should just say a little bit less sweet.
Yep.
Essentially, you're going to be able to go in and purchase, your travel stuff in bulk for a considerable discount.
Is
So
dark chocolate less sweet?
is that a joke? That's
Is
literally
that- You ever had dark
you're
chocolate?
literally explaining dark chocolate.
Is that the right taste
Earthy.
thing?
You're a special guy.
Yeah, no, it's
Sweeter?
less sweet. Yeah,
We
that's
were actually
typically-
talking earlier
chocolate
about how you can be as intelligent as you are and get wrapped around the axle on the weirdest things. So
the way your brain
something
works, bro.
that is 100% cacao, well, you see the hipsters, the 98% or the 95s or
Okay,
whatever,
okay.
has less sugar
Oh,
in
it's
it.
more bitter.
That's it. That's the whole thing. Okay, so not to spend too much time on what makes dark chocolate.
Listen, the
That needs to be
people
our
want to
next
know.
podcast.
The people want to
Is that
know.
the correct description? Yes, it is the correct description.
We got Hunter fired up now, trying to figure that out,
Well,
and we're going to
before
see
we-
if he can get into the 170s on his grip test.
I was gonna say, all right.
All right.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going
we're
first.
skipping
I'm not a
that.
fucking plebeian. Here, come over here and get it.
Can't walk that far.
There you go. I'll save you
it's
the
just
trip.
standstill
Save you the
power
trip.
play of us just sitting here staring at each other.
You get it.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank
Crack.
Oh, I slipped. That's not good.
Oh, yikes. Oh, no.
you. Was it?
No one's allowed to ever
Give
know.
it another fire. Give it another rip.
You don't get two.
Oh, all right, fine.
What was it?
I'm not telling anyone ever.
We just say took a third.
Was it less than 130?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I saw 120, like 3 or so, but I can't be
your
sure.
hole.
Ow. Oh, wow. Your fingers didn't even crack.
153. That's good for me. It's not great.
That's not bad. That's
I've been flirting with 160
it's
lately.
not a-
Bringing a chalk bag in here next week.
Not a gimme for me, but dark chocolate. Don't get me fired up.
170?
165.
Loser. My goodness. Maybe he's not
I
as
got all those
passionate.
same numbers just in a very different order.
Where's our chalkboard with wins and losses?
We haven't done that yet.
What's the
Before we go into the topic, Sherb, you posted the other day your meditation streak. You posted that, and that actually reminded me to get back into making sure that before I get started with my shit in the morning, we both use the Waking Up app for that. We've never really gone over it. It's something that you sort of added into your routine. I don't know how you feel about
I
it.
can dive into a little bit. So one of the things that I don't consider a very good strength of mine is being super organized, or like, I don't want to say that I'm like spastic or like,
Hunter's fighting a smirk right now, and
super-
it's making me laugh.
super like detail oriented. But, one of the things that I like pride myself on is being able to make connections with people. But a lot of times I have to do other parts of my job that involve being very focused for extended periods of time. So something I find very challenging is to do that, specifically sitting still. I've never been someone who's enjoyed just like sitting there and like thinking. That's like never been my style. So
It's been meeping head to toe here the whole podcast.
so
You never wondered if milk chocolate was sweeter than dark chocolate?
I mean, I have.
Sit.
Usually I'm eating it though, not meditating.
Oh man, this was great. Yeah,
this was milk chocolate.
Why does this taste better?
But,
It can't be sugar.
One of the things that you and I had talked about together is that, you should consider trying some meditation. It might help you kind of work through some of the anxiety or anxiousness that prevents you from sitting still. One of the things we talk about is that we don't want to be all the way to the left or all the way to the right. We want to kind of live somewhere in the middle or in the gray. So for me, it's like I've tried, the planners, the organizers, trying to find a mentor to see if I can have strategies or tips. And I've listened to a million of those like self-help books, and a lot of them were so long, we're just preaching, hey, you should spend some time just quietly thinking. Like, you should consider 10 minutes of meditation. And for a lot of people, that's daunting. It's like, well, what the hell do I do? I've never had it. I don't have a meditation coach. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So thankfully, there were people out there like Sam Harris who put out an app that was like, here, I'm going to help you meditate and realize that like the practice of meditation is nothing more than sitting with your own thoughts and trying to sit still and recognize that as thoughts come, they're just thoughts. And for a lot of people are like, no, how do I do it? Like, is there a button I push? Is there an itch I scratch? It's like, no, you just spend some time thinking, and, whether that's following your breathing or thinking about your visual field, things that he talks about quite often. So for me, I was like, what, other things haven't worked. Let's try this. What's the worst that can happen from taking a little time to practice this? And, what's nice about their app too, it's a little bit of a game that tells you how many sessions you've done, how much minutes you spent meditating. And for whatever reason, that works with my psychology. I like the idea of it being a little bit gamified. So I try to make sure that during the week that I get at least 3 sessions of meditation, just where I sit for 10 to 15 minutes, nice and quiet. I usually follow along. I have done the unguided ones as well, but I typically sit with the guided ones. And I do notice that when I take that time, the rest of my day is a little bit more, I would say, in control. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still things that pull me in a million different directions throughout the day, but the days that I spend that I was extra 10 to 15 minutes, I feel a lot better internally, and I find it much easier to do focused work like writing or programming. So for me, it's made a big difference. And, that popped up one day or as a reminder, like, hey, you've done this many minutes this year to date. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, because when I started, I was like, Drew, I don't think I'm gonna make it through like 3 of these. Like, these are so boring, and why am I doing this? It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything.
But then
you
we
start
came
to
full
build a
circle
streak.
and you were the one reminding me to meditate.
Yeah, and you build that streak. And then one of the things I think is great about the culture we have at our workplace here is that if someone's not working out, we can bring someone into a workout. Obviously, someone's not eating healthy or sleeping or doing something that could make them, a better person, a better human, and happier. Like, we're going to say that to the person in the office. So, you telling me originally to do it was great, but then I was able to pay it forward back to you and just be like, hey, I'm posting this out there because I've been doing it. I find it helps me. And I'm hoping that someone else out there also has a similar experience. So like, you know what? I've never tried meditation, but I've been suggested that I try, and now it makes a big difference for them.
Yeah. I mean, I asked for a couple of reasons. One, I think you sort of live at that intersection of coach and athlete. I think that's so much baked.
Generous of you. Thank you.
It's so much baked into your DNA that's just a part of you that, it's a piece of your identity. And when it falls off, you usually get sort of pulled back in.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. So that's the reason why I wanted to ask you specifically. And then it's part of a decent segue into today's topic. It's just this idea of mindset and the idea of being able to let thoughts show up in your brain and realize that you don't have to hold on to them and say, this is who I am, or this is what, like people are going to have negative thoughts come in. And one of the things that meditation teaches you and allows you to do is just say, oh, hey, thought, see ya. Like, you can come in, you go out to that certain extent. And what's tough is I think we're speaking generally to 60 to 80% type A personalities on this podcast based on them being the type of person to really take action and get after it within the gym. And I remember when I first started with it, I had that mindset. It's like, I'm not good at this. And it's like, how can you be not good at sitting still? Like, you just
don't do anything.
You just sit there and don't do anything. You're bad at nothing. Like, what? So not having that
bad
idea,
at nothing.
Put out a t-shirt.
Fucking loser.
but like not having that mindset of you don't go in and win the session. Like at its base level, if you forced yourself to sit in an empty, quiet room for 5 minutes, you've essentially incorporated a mindfulness practice into your life. So the idea of being type A and going, oh, I'm going to go into my mind and not know what's going on for 60 minutes, my first session or something like that. It's like, no, it's not going to work that way. And one of the things that I personally suggest for people that like cannot do this or can't even wrap their mind around the idea is to, Apple Watch, Whoop strap, chest strap, whatever it is, get on an assault bike and get your heart rate up into the 160s, 170s, something like that. Sit next to the bike and stare at your screen and breathe through your nose and see what it takes for you as a person to manipulate your central nervous system to get it back down to a place where you're in control, and then you do it again. And that's a form of mindfulness, a form of meditation, a way for people to understand that you have a lot more control over your physiology than you think you do. And of course, there's direct translation to our sport. When you act like a nut job, your body's going to react that way.
Yeah, I'd say the two things that it's helped me most with is I'm definitely an emotion based person. Like, I can get too high and too low in things. And this has helped me recognize that I tend to have an initial gut reaction that isn't always the most advantageous position to be in when that happens. And then second, I was also someone who's super motivated by outcome instead of processes. So to me, a lot of the lessons that I've learned through meditation is to allow something to come to you, allow it to sit there, fester, let you think about it instead of just initially going back with your gut and just saying, this is fucked up, or this is how I feel about it. It's like, allow it to sit there for a while, because most of us know that our initial gut reaction to something, especially when it's emotional, typically isn't something we're going to be proud of later on, or we're going to have some regret there. Or, just typically is not the best way to deal with something is, with an emotional reaction back to it. And then, one thing that I talk about with athletes, part of our journey as coaches here is to help an athlete understand that like the stuff that we do in the gym is a parallel for life, and the things that we gain and the character traits that we develop through the practice of going to the gym and making ourselves a better person are actually a bigger lesson for just life in general than just, hey, I wanted to go to the CrossFit Games. Like, yes, it's an awesome goal to have that be your thing that you're striving for. But if you're only focused on the outcome, it's very easy to get lost in the process and lose motivation just based upon one good day or one bad day. So for me, it helped me reflect my own don't know if I would say insecurities, but own faults or things that I thought could be developed better. And now I'm able to then use that as both an athlete and a coach and pay it forward to somebody else and say, hey, I know you're very fired up that the dumbbell overhead walking lunge that you just did the other day went horribly. But guess what? We learned something, which means that we have a great path moving forward in your training versus just like, oh, I did awesome, pat in the back, move on. Because a lot of people treat the day at the gym like that. Like either I beat all my friends, it was a great day, or I did terrible because I lost all my friends and I should stop doing this. So to me, it really helped me think about myself from both the emotional side and the outcome driven side and say, all right, like, is that the best way to think about things? And for me, that's the biggest change with the mindful practices. Those things have been shifted some.
Yeah. For me, I would say the like sort of example that I can grab onto that I can give for people is, having the thought in the moment while exercising and then being able to reframe where I'm at and move forward with a better mindset. When I do my Sunday miles, it's hard for me not to, I'm doing, staying at a heart rate in the close to 180 minus my age. And it's insanely fucking slow. It's crazy slow. So I'm out running and I'm just having one of those mornings where it's even slower than usual. I just cannot run. Basically, the slowest jog that you can do was what I was doing. And anytime I tried to pick it up, even though I felt comfortable, my heart rate would spike. So you go through that thing of like still wanting to, eventually go into the gym and win a workout because you're doing this. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, I personally do the Maffetone stuff because 90 minutes to 4 hours a week in that range, you're reducing all-cause mortality by 45%. That's why I'm doing it. So literally existing in that heart rate zone, whatever I'm doing, is going to help me live longer. And that's when I can be like, it's actually pretty nice outside right now. Like the leaves are changing. It's like full fucking
and I can
Technicolor.
run slow as balls. Like, fuck, this is great.
Yeah, like like there were so many things that were laid out in front of me. You're gonna live longer. It's super nice outside right now. Sun is shining. Birds are chirping. Leaves are changing colors. And my mind was stuck on like I wouldn't want anyone to see my split.
You're trying to be in the moment, which I think is a huge part of that. What you're describing, and is something that we try to get all our athletes to understand, is that like, you have this picture of yourself 6 months, a year, 10 years down the road of who you want to be. And you don't get to, snap your fingers and fast forward to that point. Instead, you have a life that you want to live. And I want you to be experiencing that to the fullest. And it'd be a shame for you to get to the, end of the rainbow, the pot of gold is, and forget the entire journey of getting there, because that's your life. Like, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have things go your way and for you to achieve your goals. But what you just described is it's a great way to reframe your mind. If you're in the middle of the shit and you're like, how do I make some progress here? Or what can I latch onto when I'm super uncomfortable in the middle of an assault bike sprint? What can I do here to make a difference? And for a lot of people, it's being present. I think of like Fight Club almost, when he's getting the lie and the spit on his hand. He's like, don't block this out. Don't go to your meditation. Like, stay right here in the moment. This is your life. This is what you're about. And, that's something I want everyone to experience. So when you get in a situation where you feel like everything's out of your control and you're not where you want to be, ask yourself, what are you in control of right now? Control of your headspace, you can focus on your breathing or how you're moving. Like, there are many different ways to kind of remind yourself. But when you get in that situation, it's just about reframing, and it goes a long way. That's really what meditation's really taught me so far.
It's kind of interesting that we're when I say we, I think I'm thinking of CrossFitters in general, but I feel like you could extrapolate it to a lot of different things. But people aren't very good at looking back, like kind of like, where'd you come from? Like kind of looking back down the mountain. It's very much like I had the
made
same
so much progress. Like I used to honestly like I would be absolutely fucking annihilated for days if I went out and ran 4 miles. Now it's a joke.
Right. Yeah. No, I had the same. I was doing some biking. I kind of fell off it for a little bit, like the heart rate stuff with the biking. But even yet, the last 2 days, my paces. So like the 2 days ago, my pace was like 4 or 5 seconds faster than it was like when I originally started, like a while ago. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the next day, I did it again, which was yesterday, and my split was like a half second to a second slower than the day before. And I was like, you chicken shit. Like, you got less fit over these 24 hours.
How
like, you
could you?
fuck. Like, how'd you do that? And it's like, that's silly. And I know it's silly in the moment. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, why are you thinking that,
Right.
like, nothing changed? Yeah, you're a little bit slower today. Like, whatever. Tomorrow you might be faster. You might be slower for a week and then you'll be faster like for 3 weeks. It doesn't matter. But
And there's there's another layer below that where you're in your head and you're causing your heart rate's going to go up.
Sure, yeah, you're worried.
You're
you're
pissed.
looking at the number and you're just
you're
like,
pissed
now I'm
about where
upset,
you're
so your
at,
heart rate goes
and
up.
you're going to get slower.
Yeah.
They always make that like cliche, like, oh, talk to yourself in a positive manner. Everyone hears that's like, yeah, I'm going to say how awesome I am in the middle of something when I'm doing terrible. But like, that does matter. If you tell yourself you're not doing what you should be doing, or you're holding yourself back, or you're being a softy today, like that conversation you're having with yourself definitely impacts the way you perform. So like, you don't need to go around patting yourself on the back 24/7, but like, think about the way that you speak to yourself. And, I think the best way to describe is like, would you speak to someone else that way? And if you wouldn't, you probably shouldn't use that tactic on yourself.
I think that's one really underestimated value point to having a coach, whether it's like a remote coach or somebody at the gym, or even like a training partner who you kind of rely on to make sure that you occasionally get, you look back down the mountain, so to speak, because people in general aren't very good at holding themselves accountable to certain things. Like, we need, like, just think about it. The last time you tried to start a diet, like, how'd that go for you? Like, you did it for a couple days and then you fell off, and and it's the same idea with like higher level, like, moral, like, values and stuff like that. People aren't very good at creating them for themselves, but they're very good at adhering to it if somebody else is there to hold them accountable to it or to ask them about it. And I would say that applies to fitness as well. It's if you have that individual who's not only going to hold you accountable but also remind you of the things that we're talking about, to look back down the mountain, to be like, hey, what happened today is not a reflection of you as a
Yeah, well, the problem is
all-encompassing
with
person.
you as the author of what's happening there is you feel like you also have the ability to be the editor. And those permissions should not be given to the exact same person.
Yeah, that's
you aren't your job. You aren't how much money you have in the bank.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and save you a whole lot of dough. Black Friday is coming to properfuel.co. We got two scenarios here. You've been listening to this podcast for a while and you're like, I haven't tried that yet. Should I try it? Well, guess what? You get to try it for 25% off. That is the single serve packets, both versions of the pre-workout, stim and non-stim, and proper recovery, 25% off. Or you're a big fan and you're like, you want to know what? I'm going to stick it to the man and I'm going to stock up. I'm going to get a bunch of units to set me up for the foreseeable future.
Ooh.
And you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff at 25% off. And you don't need to do anything. You just show up and buy it.
dope.
I love capitalism.
Properfuel.co.
We are also brought to you by Pure Spectrum CBD. You can head to Pure Spectrum CBD, use the code word Misfit to save on your order. Like I said earlier in the episode, one of the things I like to do, or have been doing recently, is been getting into a little bit of a headspace work with the Waking Up app from Sam Harris. One of the ways I like to augment that is with that tincture from Pure Spectrum, that black label tincture, that 2,500 milligram. It's a really nice way to help get yourself into that more of that rest and digest, calm down, be in that quiet space. So again, if you're someone that, like me, that struggles with getting into like the I'm going to chill now mode, definitely recommend that that tincture, 2,500 milligram, is a nice dose for that CBD.
Very nice dose. And we are brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. Head to sharpentheaxeco.com now and definitely on midnight. Black Friday morning. We don't know.
The first midnight after Thanksgiving.
First midnight after Thanksgiving. There's no way we can fuck this up. Okay. 20 to 80% off. If you're watching us on YouTube, we got what I would say is the best collection that we've made in at least in my memory, in my recent memory, which is, I don't know, like a year or so. Yeah. Big fan. It might surprise you that I'm not a huge, like, bright color kind of guy. In some instances I am, but generally no. I like my grays and my black, like, apparel, and we by we, I mean mostly you guys, knock the designs out of the park. So sharpentheaxeco.com, 20 to 80%, 80% off on Black Friday.
And if you like what you're listening to and want to support the podcast, the absolute best way to do so is to head to misfitathletics.com, or if you're at an affiliate or you own an affiliate, teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. You can find both of those in the SugarWOD marketplace if that's what you like. You can get 2 weeks for free. You can try it out. You can jump into phase 3 with the rest of us. All right, back to the show. So whether you know it or not, we've already been talking about today's topic where the very first test of phase 3 was the squat snatch survivor ladder. And we're seeing a pretty black and white scenario here. We have on one side, lots of PRs happening. You followed all of the progressions we've had through the year. And although the goal is to PR in retest week, we'll take them as they come, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's sort of how that works. But then we also have the absolute mindfuck that is the 1 rep max squat snatch, landing people on the other side where they're moving better and they know they're stronger and they're still not snatching more weight. So today's topic is about overcoming, the hurdles that are, the roadblocks, the barriers, whatever it is for you to get over to get your 1 rep max, because so many of you out there have already earned your 1 rep max through the work that you've done. And you go into that session, and we're going to get into why it doesn't actually happen and what you can do to make it happen. But you go into that session and you just can't do it. We see a lot of people. I mean, I've seen it as much as from the floor to the knee, they drop the bar, or everyone's favorite, the snatch pull. Everybody's favorite, the snatch pull and the bail, run away, whatever. So what I'd like to do is get into breaking down the mindset that goes into this and then work downstream to make sure, we got to talk about your form. We got to talk about your programming. But the point of today is based more on something that Sherb and I have talked about a bunch, is what I like to call the football locker room mentality. I came into CrossFit and essentially my only skill that I had was that I had done a bunch of 1 rep maxes previously and I fucking loved it. It's great. It's the room, you and your friends, with loud music, with pumping each other up, with trying to one up each other. That mentality when, at that point in your life, it's very low stakes. It's not the game that you're going to play. It's just sort of these tertiary bragging rights.
Give you something to do in the off season.
Exactly. So coming into CrossFit, I did not understand the literally opposite mentality of woe is me. I can't do this. I can't do that. You are trying to distill all of this hard work that you have on all these other areas that takes anywhere from 1 minute to 5 minutes to 60 minutes down into one movement, one act, 1 to 5 second, depending on if you chase the barbell around the gym for a little bit, that kind of deal. So, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about how to teach people to have, first and foremost, have fun with this and create an exciting environment. And one of the things that we talked about recently internally was having, a max out Friday where we get a small group together and it is the loud music and it is the pumping each other up and getting people excited and letting people know that it's okay to fail if you're going into it not being apprehensive. That being apprehensive is the thing that we're trying to get rid of. So it's okay that if the first few times that you finally shed that and get that weighted blanket off you and then go lift, you believe that you're actually going to do it, and then we can sort of work from there. But man, you got to be excited to the point, again, where you can reach maximal strength output, 0 to 100, snap of a finger.
Yeah, I'd say that's
the baseline.
The last 10% of your strength, maybe not 10%, but a good chunk of it is you believing that you can even attempt to do that. And, we always talk about that athlete ego being both positive and negative. In this situation, it's positive. You have to go in there going I'm going to fuck that barbell up. I'm going to put it over my head. I'm going to pick it off the floor. I'm going to squat that. And if you don't have that energy going into it, you're setting yourself up on the wrong foot. And for me, the biggest determining factor there is the vibe of the room that you're in. What can you do within the room to make it more fun to lift, whether that's inviting a certain group of friends to lift with because you enjoy spending time with them, whether that's good music, whether that's cranking up an extra dose of pre-workout, or depends on whatever you're into. But you can manufacture
Properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit.
Get that stim. You could use that environment to help create that like sympathetic or like that fight or flight arousal that you need to get into that headspace. And as you were talking about your like football locker room, one of the things that you've talked about in the past is that, you know, you love the game, you hated practice. Well, what does 1 rep max day feel like when you're in the throes of the off season? It feels like a game. It feels like you're getting a chance to catch a touchdown.
But for so many people,
yeah,
it feels like practice.
Yeah,
we need it to be the game.
Yeah, you have to create that sense of, you know, whether that's like having someone turn the music down, you walk up to the bar, crank the music up, and let you go. Like, you have to create that environment. And, you know, sometimes that's just you being around your buddies with the right playlist. And sometimes it's just like making sure that you have the right people in the room. But the biggest thing I would say is, you know, you go in there with a bunch of people who believe in you the same way you believe in yourself. Because if you have a little bit of that like negativity built in, yeah, I know we can talk about razzing each other and like, oh, I'm going to lift more than you and that being competitive. Like, that's fun for us. That might not be your bag. You have to figure out what makes you the most excited to go there and try to do your best. And that's going to be a little bit different for everyone. But I'm going to say start with the environment you're training in. Who's around you? What's it like? How you're approaching it? And, you know, we can go a little bit more nitty gritty, like detail stuff. But like, to me, that's the first step is like make the room an environment you want to be in and something that gets you excited. So I think we all have our favorite music out there. Crank that as loud as you can and have a good time with it.
I think a lot of it starts before you get into the gym as well. And you can't talk about, especially if you know that day is coming up, like it's the end of the phase. Okay, Monday's my retest or my test. Like all of these things are absolutely true. And I would argue that you can overcome a lot of like like, oh, you slept like dog shit. Oh, you didn't eat well. You're coming off a weekend or something like that. Like everybody's had those days where you not only go in and
where your phone tells
PR,
you feel like shit, but you feel strong as hell in real life.
Exactly. and you PR, like there's like there are way too many variables to try to account for to like create the perfect possible scenario. And I would, like I said, you can the atmosphere is massive in my opinion. And I can only just think about like the affiliate, like that like 5 p.m. usually that's one of our bigger classes, like friends with a lot of those folks. And it's like, I take a lot of pride and will like jokingly tell the coaches like I want you to literally stab everybody in the heart with an adrenaline pen and like crank like the mute, like it is. And
I'll bring my EpiPen in next time.
Yeah, we take like we put the onus on the coaching staff. Like you don't understand how much you can positively impact somebody by just jacking up the level of energy in the room. And it is like I people joke with me about the music situation, but like it's huge. It's hugely important to get that atmosphere, the environment, who you're lifting with, the people who are going to push you, who know how to push you in the right direction, whether it is, you know, the more like locker room talk sort of situation where you're like making fun of each other, like, you know, talking shit basically, or maybe it's a more positive, like motivational thing. Whatever works for you is important. But we also need to like, especially you on your own, like 20 minutes before you get to the gym, you don't have that. So what do you need to do? You need to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success before you get to the gym. And especially for a 1 rep max, like the basics of like, did you hydrate? Did you sleep well? How's the eating been going? Like the boring shit that you don't want to hear. Like that among of the 100 items on the checklist that says like, yep, if you account for X percentage of these, you're going to PR. Like, those have to be taken into account as well.
Yeah. And I think the reason why we have to start with environment is because you have to develop a new narrative. like you're not going to be able to just sit there and say, okay, brain, we're going to be really positive today. We're really, even though we hate this movement and we're never going to PR and it's the worst day ever, we're going to have just so much fun lifting today.
That works.
Yeah. So I think setting environment is that number one
Can't
thing.
fucking trick yourself. Shut up.
No,
You're not that smart.
It's not going to happen. So moving on from that, I think is what Sherb already referenced is so many of these people, their body language before they go lift, I do not believe them. I don't believe them for a fucking second, and I am not in their head at all. I'm not in their head, and when I say that, it's a broader spectrum than you would think, because I know people who are silent killers, and I can tell they're going to go lift that barbell. I know people who are more like me that got to put this jam on, slap the rig, kick something, do whatever. Like, just tell, for some reason, I need my nervous system needs to be told it's time to go. It has to.
Yeah.
Or else I get whatever, 90% results, something to that effect. So it's not just, I need to see you act like a fucking moron like I do. I need to see some level of confidence in how you carry yourself before you go and do that. And I think so many people out there truly believe that the most confident people in the world just always walk up to the barbell and hit it. You're thinking about it backwards. They don't care if they don't hit it.
Yeah.
They don't set the expectation that today is absolute garbage because I didn't hit this lift.
It's like
right?
It's like, yeah.
They smoked 80%, 85%, 90%, maybe some of the best lifts they've had from a technical standpoint or a speed standpoint, or maybe they saved something and didn't know they had that stability in their midline, or their shoulders, whatever it is. They find that victory built into that, and they just realize, maybe today's not my day. So it's not that they, throw the cape on. They don't go into the phone booth and put the Superman suit on and come back out and hit every single lift. It's cheesy. It's why there's the joke on The Office of the shots you take and Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott. But those people mean that. Like, Michael Jordan didn't stop shooting. He wasn't going to stop shooting. Wayne Gretzky wasn't going to stop shooting. All of these people, the best of the best, they're okay with that. Tom Brady every once in a while goes out and throws 3 picks and then, a half of a game. And he still throws 20 more passes in the second half. He doesn't let that shit get to him. So I think if you are setting the standard and the expectation that today is only a victory, or I can't move on from today without being pissed off if I hit every single lift, that's the problem, right? So we set that environment, and then we have to reframe mentally where we're at. Like what am I trying to, what expectation am I setting for myself today? Well, and that expectation should be belief and attitude and all these pieces. It's not, if I miss, I'm no good.
Well, to me, it just goes back to that, that storytelling you give yourself. And again, this is where the ego can come back out and hurt you. That if I was a really good CrossFitter, I would never miss any of my lifts building up to 100%. All those guys, the names that you all know, as they're warming up for their new 1 rep max day, when they're doing their program, they're hitting every single lift. They never miss. Everything is picture perfect and looks like, the snatch we saw from the Brazilian dude at the CrossFit Games here. Every single snatch looks like that. The answer is fuck no, it doesn't go like that. They have just as many bad missed lifts for silly reasons that you do. The problem is they don't get wrapped around the axle and let it fester and let it build, prevent the ability to then go try again and then try again and then try again. One of the things that we love to see from an athlete is that athlete who is on max day, they try and they miss, and they try again and they miss, and they try again and they miss. And it's because they sincerely believe that you give them one more chance, it's going to happen on the next one. And sometimes we have to be all right, no more. You're not pulling the bar as good anymore. Or it's getting to the point where diminished returns on your investment. But you want an athlete who truly believes that the next one is going to be that new PR, that next best lift. And if you're telling yourself that if I make a mistake on the way up, or I don't have all my lifts go perfectly, this is a waste of my time. Again, that's someone who's getting obsessed about the outcome, not the process in the middle.
It's amazing too. The exact same thing for 2 different people is excitement and potential and possibility. And for the other person, it's baggage. And it's another session that weighs them down. So you miss a lift and you'll see it. We saw it at Rogue with the complexes that we're doing. We saw it at the games. Someone who's great at lifting misses a lift and they look excited after they miss it. They're like, oh baby, that is right there. That is I know that is in my future. I am going to hit that lift. No doubt in my mind. And then you have the other people who you see their body language immediately change and they have now, this gigantic bag that they've been carrying around that makes them not PR. They're throwing a few more weights in it every single time that they do that. And they, create this narrative, well, I'm not good at 1 rep maxes, or I'm not strong. I can only do whatever it is, 99% for 100 reps in a Metcon because I'm a slow twitch athlete, or whatever story they want to tell themselves. Like the exact same thing. You missing a lift and them missing a lift, completely different.
Watch Emma Carey at the Rogue event. She's in that, I think they had 2 heats. She was in the bottom heat to start or whatever, and she puts on whatever, like 235, and literally misses her very first clean of the entire event. It's like, you have to go overhead, do a front squat, another overhead after that, right? And you're failing your first clean. And you'd see athletes in other competitions where that would literally be like, all right, I got to pull weight off the barbell, or I'm missing this round, I'm going to go lighter next round. She didn't care. Took a step back, took a deep breath, rebraced, lifted the bar. And that's because, again, she believed that the very next one was going to be a make. And that is a story for a lot of athletes that isn't the case. The second they have one weird thing happen, rip the paper up, throw it in the air, and go, all right, this session's a waste. Come back tomorrow. Like, that to me is such a shame. And what I'd like to see an athlete do instead is to be like, all right, well, maybe I have to hit a couple more, or I have to take 5% off the barbell and build back up again. That's another tactic we see athletes that works really well with people who tend to get in their head sometimes. It's like you have permission to take some weight back off your bar. It's not one of those things where once weight goes on, it's there forever and it's like cast in stone on the bar. It's like, no, you have a bad session, bad lift, pull it back off, build your confidence back up, and go back into it. And I do think the athletes that have that mindset are the ones that don't get thrown off their path when they have one bad lift or one bad part of a lift. So to me, I think if you don't know what we're talking about, go watch her hit that lift again at the Rogue event, because to me, that was the sign of a good competitor, even, being the fact that she's only like 17 or 18 years old. Like, that's what we want to see in an athlete. They don't care that one thing went wrong. Who cares? Going back, I'm doing this next time.
What do you tell an athlete then who can, let's take the 1 rep max example. I can repeatedly hit 90%, 85%, 95%. Maybe it's as soon as I put that next set of plates on the bar, it's like kind of like it's like 315. It's like you get 3 plates on the bar or something like that. What do you, I mean, there's like the psychological, the Cody thing. Like, I don't know how much weight's on the bar. I'm just going to lift it. What do you do for that athlete?
I mean, for me, it's about an athlete understanding and using other examples to show themselves what's possible. There's a musing somewhere buried in your inbox that talks about the power of possibility and what it means to an athlete once they realize that a thing is possible. So the sub 7 2K, the 225 snatch that has over the last decade switched to, is it possible for a man, to now, is it possible for a woman? Like these things, when the community goes in and says the sub 2 Fran or whatever, that should tell you a whole hell of a lot about what is going on with your mindset. How are we, the 4-minute mile? It's impossible. The 4-minute mile is impossible. Guy runs it, and then everybody else runs it after, even though it was impossible. And when he did it, it was like some sort of alien feat or something like that. So you have to dig into what it takes to believe that it's even possible before you believe you are going to hit it. So when you see people around you hitting a weight and you stop and think to yourself, what do? They do technique work, they do linear progression, they do percent, we're all doing the same stuff here, right? Some people, slight nuances, whatever, but knowing that your peer can do that, I believe, is step 1, or that someone can do that. Someone of a similar ilk as you can do that. That's step 1, because it plants in the back of your head, it is very possible for me to do this. But that leap from this is possible to I know that I can do it is something that you have to work on as an athlete.
Something you earn, right? Something you earn with experience.
Yeah, it is, but it's also the kind of thing that I just don't believe is sort of this like overnight phenomenon. Like, I'm not expecting people to listen to this podcast and try to create that environment and, just fill in that entire gap. The goal is to create that environment with your friends, to be around people that you want to be around, that are uplifting, either through joking around with you or truly being like, you got this, let's fucking go, let's do it. Creating that environment, and then afterwards saying, was my mentality better today? Like, did I improve on the belief that I was going to be able to hit this? Or did I allow myself to try it again because my footwork was off or whatever? I think that's going to be the type of thing. It's the type of skill where you have to create a groove. You have to go in and you have to say, we're going to do this every single Friday for a year. We're going to get the crew together. We're going to get after it. And you're going to start to find these patterns of, well, I quote unquote like the back squat. So every time we do this, I PR my back squat. I hate snatching and I never hit it. Okay, well, you're the same person and you're strong and you move pretty well.
Stronger.
Right, you're getting stronger, obviously. So what's the hang up here? It's between the ears, and then maybe you can convince yourself to believe in yourself a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. But you have to, like, that's it right there. Like, if you're going to perform at anywhere from 95 to 105% of old potential, you have to believe that you're going to hit it. You have to.
It's funny you say that because I had actually...
Especially the more technical it is.
Yeah, and this is actually going to go back because this lift isn't specifically as technical, but it's the front squat. So one of the things the teenagers are doing...
Don't you dare say that. Well, I mean... You're talking to the wrong fucking guy.
It's definitely technical for
Not
front
technical
squat.
for him.
Yeah, have you seen mine? That's why I'm determining it's not technical. We've seen someone front squat with their chest on their thighs. Fuck.
I want to see how far laterally you can create a distance between your elbows and your ass.
You're like an...
Sounds good to me. What's the problem?
You're like an Asus laptop.
Anyways, so one of my athletes, Jenna, was talking to me about her front squat. 20 reps. What the hell do I do for that? You know, and as the coach, I'm trying to inspire her to use something that maybe she wouldn't grab for herself. She was like, I don't know, 135, 140. And I was like, Jenna, I think you have the ability to do, 75%, which for her would be somewhere around like 155 or so. And I said that to her as her coach, knowing that, like, if she had been able to do it herself, she would have done probably 145 for all 20, and it would have been hard. It wouldn't have been easy, but she wouldn't have known what her true potential is because she didn't take a risk there. So the conversation we had yesterday, talking about that, and then also the dumbbell overhead walking lunge, which gave her fits, that, like, she had a rough training day. She's like, all right, like, why were you pushing me so much to do the 155 over the 145? And I say, that's because I believe in you, and I want you to have the same level of belief in yourself that I have, because how will you know what's possible until you try something like that? That is my job as the coach, is to continually help push you to push your own boundaries. And right now, she ended up doing, I think, 145 instead of 140, which was a little bit less than we had talked about, but she eked through it. And I said, hey, we learned a lot over the last, this test. This taught you a lot about where you're currently at. And guess what? When retest comes back up, we're going to try 155 or 160, but you have to have, if you don't have it yourself, you need to find someone to help believe in you so that you think it's possible, so that you are willing to take that risk. And I do think that's another big problem that holds athletes back when it comes time to get better at things, is they just keep doing things the ways they've always done it and then wonder why things aren't changing. And if you're someone that's in that circumstance where you're stuck constantly not liking one rep max day, find a way to change the way you think about it. Find someone to talk to, find a different method for warming up, finding a different way to create a different environment. But for me, I think a lot of that comes down to, you need to have someone that believes in you more than you believe in yourself. And it does take time to find that person. But when you do find that person, that is like gasoline on the fire for when it comes time to do something like a 1 rep max. You want someone in your corner that has more belief in you than you have in yourself. And I think another great example of that is Granite Games. We were trying to get Caroline to snatch, I think 175 or 180 or 175 as her opener, because we believed, based on how she warmed up, that she could do that.
Right.
But she hadn't had that belief instilled in herself yet until she went out on the floor and did it. So to me, that's another great example of, how do you create this atmosphere, create this situation when you're currently stuck there? Find someone who's going to help push you or want to see you succeed in that regard. And to me, that helps, kind of go from, I'm stuck where I am now, not liking these 1 rep maxes, to how can I get myself closer to finding a way to enjoy and to be excited about trying to do something new or something very heavy like that.
How much of it do you think is a lack of experience in trying a 1 rep max?
Yes. I mean, that's why that's why we're saying,
like, I'm not experienced, or you get, I'm thinking about Sydney this past weekend, who front squatted 160. She's a adaptive athlete, and I don't remember what the most she'd front squatted, but I want to say it was like a 20 or 30 pound PR. It was something very significant from like comparatively. And it's like, what we've had 1 rep max days in the past. I don't remember the last time we did it at the gym, or at least the opportunity to get heavy. And the question is, well, did you always have that in the tank and you just haven't had the exposure to doing it more frequently? So is there the value in getting those athletes like, hey, instead of 6x3 today, we're going to do 7x1. And it's like, you just need to try more often in order to know what that feels like.
You need to try more often, and you need to witness or be in an environment where that is a somewhat normal thing. By far the biggest PR that I ever had was one of the first years at Beast of the East, and I PR'd my clean and jerk by like 50 or 60 pounds because I had to, because I was competing. No one that I worked out with could clean and jerk more than like 205, something like that. Like, this is 2009. 2010. we didn't know each other quite yet. You would just show up at the gym, look around, not say anything to anyone, and leave.
Yeah, sounds right. Checks out.
And it was that.
Smell the air and leave.
It was, well, how is it possible that this person next to me is clean and jerking 245 pounds?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But again, meathead extraordinaire, I put 265 on the bar. I don't even know I honestly don't know before that day if I had clean and jerked over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't like this. I just watched that guy. I'm pretty sure I'm stronger than that person.
Yeah.
And who knows if I even was. But again, this is where it comes into play. When you believe shit like that, it's pretty powerful. So I would say experience is super important. But again, finding a way to see that it is truly possible, witnessing it happening, and having that a little bit of that mindset of like, if they can do it, I can definitely do it, or I can, do more, whatever it is. Before we move on to the like truly like nitty gritty of getting stronger in terms of how you move and what your programming looks like, I just want to put a stamp on, we're not telling you to try to believe in yourself or to want to believe in yourself. We are telling you that you need to get to a place where you do
or do not,
like 100%. Like, I know I'm going to go hit this lift, and failure can happen think the amount of reasons that it could happen within a squat snatch are exponential. There are so many of them.
Time to think of all the reasons.
Like, we can nitpick that movement till the cows come home. So
it's my
if
line.
Something doesn't happen after you believe that it was possible, that you believe that you were going to walk up to do it, you have to shift over again to that mindset of like, I know that's the next one. It's the next session. It's whatever. So I want to be clear that it's not going to be overnight, but you do have to believe in yourself. You have to believe.
I think you say this really, really well in a different format, but I think it applies to this as well. Is that you say, you're only one good workout away from being healthier, or one good meal away from being healthier than that. You're one session away from having some sort of major breakthrough in the way that you lift, and that carries over for your next time you 1 rep max. So like, I want people to think that like you aren't, again, looking up at Mount Everest going, I have to climb that thing. It's like, no, I just gotta take another step. I'm just gonna take another step. Every time I make one step, I'm getting closer to that
momentum
summit.
Is such a beast.
And it really is. And if you can just convince yourself just to keep plodding along, you might not PR on the day that we randomly put on the website, but then randomly in a qualifier or at a competition, the atmosphere is like we're talking about, your parents and your family is screaming, having a good time. Music's loud, and all of a sudden, there's the environment you were looking for all along. And because you continued to plod along this entire time, that's why you had the success on the competition floor. There isn't much more to it, in my opinion. I think it's just you hadn't had the right opportunity that made you want to PR yet, and that this is finally the atmosphere that's been created, and that your willingness to keep plodding along, those two things kind of combine forces to allow you to PR when it actually matters, which is another, I don't know if we're going to get into that topic at all in this podcast, but PRing when PRing is most appropriate or most desired.
Yeah, we can get into that a little bit, but the final thing with this part of the topic that came to mind is, it is so funny to watch an athlete go from they had a bad test or retest week at some point, and they've decided, once again, I'm not good at 1 rep maxes, and then they have a good week, and because they're having a good week, they keep PRing. and they think that it's some sort of magical thing that we baked into the Excel sheets.
It is. Yeah.
Mac and cheese?
Baked it in.
No,
we baked the lobster into the Mac.
You're doing the thing that we're talking about. You're walking into the gym with the right attitude. You're creating an environment. It's like the
swagger.
It's like when the kid in the movie loses his virginity, and then the next day the song's playing and he's winking at people and pointing at him as he's walking down the street. Like when you have that test week where things are going that way, you can understand, if you're, want to reflect on it, how fickle it is to go in and have that sort of attitude and what can take place. Because I think you can flip it around in the other direction.
I think the confidence portion, which is kind of what all these ideas are leading us to, is that especially like I've personally always been an athlete who rarely PRs during like a test week. It'll be like a random, mid-phase day where it's like actually reasonable to build up. It's not like I've never really gone like off the rails and been like, I'm 1 rep max day, found it. It was more just like, wow, things are moving really well today. I didn't PR, like you got to kind of get it when you got it. And it's like when that happens to athletes, it's like, more often than not, if it's not on a test day, they're just like, it was kind of lucky. But like, don't discount yourself. Like you still did all the work up to that point. You just happened to not PR on the day and the time that we put in a spreadsheet for you to try to realize the gains that we've tried to, kind of make you promote the last few weeks or however long it's been. So like that's a big one, and that's a more frequent conversation I have with athletes at the affiliate level. It's like, how big of a PR is actually significant, or like, hey, I didn't PR. I talked to a few people about their deadlift and at the end of the phase, and it was like, well, like first of all, that's one of those lifts where it's just like, maybe you got it, maybe you don't. And there's like a zillion reasons, as with any 1 rep max, that you might not PR, but that doesn't mean that all the work that you had done up to that point was a waste, because odds are over those previous 6 weeks, you felt at one point you were just like, oh, I'm going to fucking rip 40 more pounds off the floor come retest week. So where did that confidence go? And it's, well, maybe you just weren't feeling that great, or maybe it wasn't, maybe the atmosphere wasn't set, or you didn't convince yourself beforehand that you were going to PR, or it's, it's just not going to happen on that day for any number of external factors that we could point out.
Yeah, and I think you're actually a really good example for this topic, because one of your superpowers in the gym is not getting too high and too low. Mm-hmm. So when we're operating from 60 to 90, 60 to 95%, you go in and you do what you got to do to move the barbell, or to put in the effort within a Metcon, however you want to look at that. But then it would be a pretty vulnerable act for you to go into the gym and act like a silly bitch and be fucking, it would be out of character for you to change the song and turn it all the way up, to be screaming or stomping your feet, or, whatever your version of that is. And I think that that's one way where people that are listening can identify with, like, are you letting yourself go there to a certain point? And I think people don't want to go there because they don't want to be the person that puts on a show and then fails a lift. Guess what? Done it plenty of times. Doesn't matter. Laugh afterwards. Yeah. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's
not your last lift. It's not the final one.
It's the same vulnerability that people have, where they're like, oh, if I start this workout too fast, I'm going to blow up and look stupid and get the worst score in the room. It's like, well, how do you know where you're going to blow up if you don't do it?
Right.
How will you know that? Like that to me is the bigger,
the athlete that comes in 35th in every games workout because they don't want to come in 40th instead of 10th.
Yeah, I wanted to get those extra 7 points. Like take a swing and see what happens. And to me, that's the biggest shame for a lot of athletes, is the willingness or the unwillingness to put themselves out there and say, all right, well, I turned the music up. I did my extra warm up. I'm real sweaty. I'm going to go lift this heavy barbell. And shucks, it didn't happen today. Who remembers that? I don't remember last time Hunter tried to do a 100 max snatch and failed at whatever weight that was. Like, I don't pay attention to that
Never
stuff.
happened.
And you tell yourself that everyone's going to remember it.
September 13th, 2:12 p.m.
It was like a week ago. I
Everyone's
took 225 for a walk.
But like everyone feels that way. But the truth of the matter is, no one. I don't want to say this like to make you feel bad, but no one cares. Like it's just
it's a good thing that no one cares.
It's a one day thing. It doesn't define who you are. It's one day where it didn't go your way. go back tomorrow and find a way to fix it. Like,
I love that conversation. Somebody's like disappointed about their score on the whiteboard, and you get to tell them like, hey, come here. Like, hey, there's like 0 people who are like scrolling through the list of people on the whiteboard looking for like that specific score. Like, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll forget about it in.
oh, I forgot about it already.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what?
Yeah. At some point, I'm going to be 40 feet away from you after this conversation, and I'm going to forget that.
Yeah, and I'm going to
never
forget
happened.
that this
I
happened.
am a human goldfish.
All right. Moving on to, you could be listening to this and you don't like it when it's not on the elemental chart. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's floating around in the air. You want concrete. This is exactly how you do it. So I do think that creating the environment could be considered a pretty concrete example. You just have to really pay attention emotionally to whether you're actually having a good time and getting excited, or if whatever you're trying needs to be tweaked a little bit. Moving on to technique, we've got 2 issues here. We've got one group who just doesn't move that well ever, and it's really hard to know. You got to go outside and measure the angle of the sun to see if you're going to hit the lift, especially when it comes to the squat snatch. And then we have other people. This is the sad one. You are a movement technician, and then you get outside your comfort zone and you do some wacky shit. We see some people who really move very, very well up to 85, 90%. And then I'm not sure what that was, but you have decided that good form is not going to help you lift more weight.
Yeah, that checks out.
Like, almost, I think there's something to the idea that if you're showing off your strength, that you have to be really dynamic, and then people are rushing through a movement or trying to, create a scenario where I have to yank this off the ground because I have to pull it to my eyes, even though you still only have to pull it, to your belly button,
Same
that sort of thing. So, for those people, bearing down on how you're actually moving, getting a coach, filming yourself, these are all prerequisites to even starting the conversation that we've already had. You are not in the technical lifts, especially, you are not going to get really any bang for your buck if you move like crap. And we have a million resources. Other people also do. You can go out there and find out the way that you're supposed to move, and you can, work your snatch top down. You can start with less variables in power position, low hang, below the knee, to the floor. There are ways to get better at it if you're willing to take some weight off the bar and do so. But this is truly, if you're looking back at your lift and you're like, ugh, it wasn't that I didn't believe in myself or that I'm not strong. I don't know what that was.
Right.
There's a major lesson there too, because one of the things we talked about with the best athletes in our sport is they're constantly seeking out other experts in different fields to figure out how much information they can gather. And that's the sign of an athlete who's trying to progress and get better, is actively seeking out, like, I'm not okay where I am now. Like, I might be very good, but I could be better. And where can I get better? And those are the athletes that you see in there doing the little tiny things, like they take the bar out of the rack, it's empty, and they spend 45 minutes moving around just an empty barbell. Like, those athletes do that to refine the way they move, and that moves the needle for them more often than not. And again, kind of going back to what you said there about, taking the time to clean up the way you move, sort of reminds me of the conversation of like, oh, I'm bad at rowing. And you're like, oh, when's the last time you rowed? And you're like, I don't do that. It's like, well, no fucking shit, you're terrible at rowing. You don't do it enough. Same goes for these barbell lifts. And yes, you might need some additional eyes on you early on to make sure that things are moving the way they are. But you can't really say you're bad at a lift, or you're not trying to get better at it if you don't take the time to do the necessary steps to get better at it. And when it comes to something like the snatch or the clean and jerk, so much of it is skill based that even if you feel you can move 135 the right way, if it's not the correct motor pattern, even though it's light for you, go lighter. Again, this is going back to that like insecurity of like, someone's going to see me with 15-pound plates on my bar and I'm snatching in the corner for 4 hours. It's like, that's the person that's trying to get better.
When I was a freshman in high school, the seniors called me nickel and dime because I could only use the 2.5s and 5s and 10s on the barbells.
God damn it.
That is fucking excellent. I have never heard that before.
They call
nickel
me
and dime.
Nickel and dimes. And I'm stronger than all of them now. So, well, maybe not today. A couple years ago.
It's a pretty good chance you still are.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good chance.
Yeah.
Old nickel and dime over here.
So I guess, but the whole point I was trying to make with that is that like don't allow yourself that cop out of like, I can't get better at this until you take the time. Specifically, if you are in that first camp, you don't move very well and you're wondering why you've been stuck the same place for so long. take a phase, take 2 phases, take a year and really focus on those things if they truly matter to you, and refine them and find people who can help you think about things in a different way, or can get eyes on you in a way that maybe you can't see for yourself. You know, one of the things I love to tell athletes at our gym is take as many different coaches' classes as possible, because the way that you've always been doing it, maybe it's not working with that coach. And if you go to someone else's coach's class, they might say it to you in a little bit different way, and all of a sudden it clicks. That's the breakthrough. You know, if you go in the corner and you grab the barbell and you put 10s on it and you do it for an hour, that might be that one session that moves the needle and allows you to add 10 pounds to your snatch. There were months and months you were like, I did all the percentage work, I did everything you guys asked, but I can't figure out why I'm not getting better. And it's like, well, there's probably a skill element you're missing. And that day that you spent in the corner for an hour with the light bar is what moved the needle.
Okay, here, I'll tell you why. So we're going, so we went from the more kind of woozy-wazzy, it's not on the elemental chart, it hasn't landed. Okay, here's something that's landed. Let's say that we do a 7-week phase, snatch 1 rep max on either end. So we've got 2 lifts, and then I actually don't remember because it's been a while since I've looked at the sheet, but let's say we do our traditional 6x3, 7x2, and then 7x1, which is like a fairly common thing that we've done, and we'll go through that twice because we've got 6.
Or maybe it's 4-3-2.
Or maybe it's 4-3-2, whatever it is. But let's say, okay, so if we go 6x3, 7x2, 7x1, and we recycle that twice, which is something we've done in the past, you've got 39 reps. There are literally 39 reps through that 6x3, 7x2, 7x1. Multiply that by 2, you're at 78. Plus the 2 or 1 rep max on either end. So you're going to tell me that 80 reps, and this is not including your warm up or anything like that, that over the course of 7 weeks, you did 80 reps and you were hoping that it got better, especially, and those are percentage based lifts. So we're going to assume that you haven't, it's difficult to correct your technique at past a certain percentage. Like, it's just very difficult to do. So if the argument is going to be, well, I did 80 reps over 7 weeks, you might make that argument after I talk to you about it and you say, yeah, I did. Your argument sounds a little bit sillier if you said, yeah, I did 80 80 reps over the course of 7 weeks. Why didn't I get better? It's like, well, think about your question for a second. Like, oh, I only did 80 reps. Like, that's not that's not that many reps. You did like 20 of them a week for 6 weeks or whatever it was. Like, it's not that much. So to your point, it's how much time are you spending with the empty bar, actually focusing on like the technique, or a PVC pipe, actually focusing on the positions you're supposed to be hitting? Are you actually retooling your lift to the point where it's like, oh, this is now a mechanically sound lift, and then we build from there? But I'll tell you what, 80 reps at a percentage of the lift that you hit when the sun was shining at the right angle that you chased all over the floor, your percentages are probably already
sometimes 80 reps is a Tuesday.
Yeah, in the wrong direction. Your percentages might already be skewed in a direction that doesn't allow you to improve. And second, you haven't done enough reps. Like, you don't rate that PR yet. Like, why haven't you spent a Thursday, a rest day, working with just the empty bar, like working through the ranges of motion and the positioning and stuff like that?
I threw a football 10 times. I should be in the NFL.
Yeah, come on.
This is not how that works. And to me, as a PSA to athletes, when a coach asks you to go grab the empty bar and do some reps, they don't mean do like 5 or 6 and then go put your weight back on your bar and start again. They literally mean spend the rest of that session with that empty barbell and fixing that thing they're trying to work with you on. And again, this is something that's near and dear to my heart as an affiliate coach. Like, you have the athlete, like, for example, our high CNS lift for the phase is the same as Misfit. It's a snatch. And you see athletes out there who are like, I really want to get better this phase. And you're like, the biggest problem you have, I'm going to show you how to fix with the empty bar. And can you show me a couple? And they show you a couple and they're like, cool, got it, coach. Put the bar away, go back to your barbell and go back to doing what they were doing before. Like, It takes a lot of time to cultivate the amount of practice necessary to make both the neurological, or learning the skill of how to move around the barbell, as well as the physiological change. And for a lot of people, the physical change happens so fast that when you're brand new, you all of a sudden get all these PRs. You're like, oh, I'm getting stronger. But then you build these bad habits by not focusing on how you move. Yeah. And that is then cemented further on, because every single session that you do exponentially creates the opportunity for you to have that pattern be ingrained deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah,
in the way that
that's another thing too, is like, I love working with people who have never I guess beginner is probably the right term, but let's say they're a beginner at the lift. It's like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to teach this person how to snatch. So there's no way I'm going to let this get fucked up, because I'm going to like, you're going to be, well, yeah, it's like, I'm going to give you, you're going to get real comfortable with this PVC pipe and this empty bar. But most of us aren't in that boat. Most of us learned how to snatch by watching, videos online, and like probably not filming yourself, and certainly not caring what you looked like as long as the weight went up.
Windows Media Player.
Yeah. Oh man, those .wmv files.
That's right.
That was good to go. Ted, you still got any of those floating around? But yeah, so if you are the Windows 95, if you're somebody who was not so fortunate, or didn't have, or just didn't know, and that I would put myself in that boat. I still kind of snatch like a jamoke, but I used to snatch a lot worse than I do now, because I didn't have anybody to point out what I was doing wrong. So you also have, those athletes are also fighting with however many years of the ingrained reps. How many reps have you done over the course of multiple years that were bad? We'll just say that we're suboptimal. And now it's like, okay, so I'm going to work with the empty bar for a while. It's like, well, and I don't PR my snatch at retest week. It's, again, you got to kind of like back at the very beginning of the conversation, look back down the mountain. You also kind of have to identify like, oh, I got a lot of bad habits to kind of rewrite. I got a lot of data to rewrite here in order to make a significant change.
Yeah, and I mean, I had essentially, I would say, the opposite experience when it came to Olympic lifts, because early on, there's sort of two things happening. One, lifting with people like Sherb and Ted, I was never, ever, ever going to have the raw strength that they did. That like raw power, the deadlift, and the not as much of a bounce in a back squat or strict press, whatever it wasn't going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
So for me to see that technique could come into play, and sort of that more dynamic movement pattern, we've always had the examples of, the hook grip or the All Things Gym, those YouTube channels, and they always had the slow-mo lift in there. And most of my training when it came to the Olympic lifts was watching slow motion videos of people that were better than everybody else, and realizing like, man, no one in CrossFit knows that this is the way that this is supposed to be done. And I remember like Ben Smith was one of the other people. And then lo and behold, I hear in an interview, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, him saying, yeah, I just watched videos of people that knew what they were doing. Like, so it's the same concept. And my ego was so attached to wanting to lift more weight that it was like, I'm going to figure out technique wise what I can do to, it felt at the time like I was like circumventing, the system, or, figuring something out. And I was, but positive or negative is sort of a different conversation. But like, I just, knowing that about the Olympic lifts, and knowing that being a student of the game and figuring these movement patterns out can, catapult you ahead of people that are significantly stronger than you. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Oh, it definitely matters. And I just remember like the old training environment at our old HQ on Warren Avenue, when we had all the guys that were training to compete at regionals, the stage before the games years ago, and how all of the downtime that was spent outside of like working out was people literally on Instagram scrolling through what the 2 accounts you just talked about, and saying, you know what, that's not how you lift.
The dude with the best lifts there was just like me. He was the weakest guy there, and he snatched and cleaned, or snatched at least more than everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And it was just because, like you said, a student of the game and obsessed with like, how can I get myself to move as close to this video of this man or woman putting, 300, 400, 500 pounds over their head when I move? Well, how can I make myself look like that? And a lot of that time was just spent, again, until it was figured out, with very, very lightweight and lots of reps.
Lots of shit talk too.
Yeah, too.
Like, what movement is that? I can't even tell.
I think that's how I got ashamed of not like broad jumping 4 feet forward every time I
think that was yesterday.
The other side of this that we referenced, that I think, I'm not sure which is worse. So you do the 80 reps that Hunter's talking about, and you're going through your percentage work, and you move like an angel. Ooh. And then a retest week happens, and you move like an asshole. Angels to Assholes. That's a band, right?
.net.
.net.
Now it's a website.
Now it's a website.
You owe me.
That's
And
Sherbs.
we're gonna make a coin for it. Anyways, so those people, we need you to get your damn cell phone out and video what you're doing, because a lot of people I don't think know what's happening. Like, we'll see someone in the gym with just this monster back squat. You watch them the whole phase. It looks easy. Like, how are they, that strong and that fit at the same time, the way that the rest periods don't kick their ass? And then they free fall from the top into the bottom of their squat as if they're not allowed to have tension at all on the way down. They get buried. They don't even try to stand
Pull the
up.
cord.
They're the saddest person alive for the next 45 minutes. Like, you have to continue to move the way that you move. You're practicing for this moment. That's the whole point of what you're doing. So to practice how good you can be and then have the game start to happen and go, that practice feels kind of stupid now. Let's go absolutely ape shit.
I have an idea.
Oh, I have a new idea. I know I've been working my ass off.
What if
I did
we
everything
threw the
different.
entire playbook out the window and just played the Super Bowl with we'll just go by feel.
I'm just going to hop around on one leg, because then they don't have two legs to tackle.
Everybody get open.
It's a good play.
Yeah,
It's a
there
good
it
play.
is.
I like that one.
So, recap. You're creating a good environment. For you, what does that mean? Does it mean it's more fun and lighthearted? Does it mean you want it to be super loud and you want your friends to smack you in the face before you lift? Find out what environment creates that fun for you. And I do mean fun because it can still be fun in a sadistic, masochistic, that kind of way. But make the environment where you want to be there. You want to go in and do the 1 rep max, and do it often enough that you are giving yourself an opportunity to fail and realize that it does not matter. Number 2, if you don't believe in yourself, the weight's pretty mean. The weight's going to be pretty mean to you. You're not going to have that extra oomph to get there. And built into those two things, that's sort of a side note, is just you're all so amazing at that, giving this incredible effort for 1, 3, 5, 10, 20 minutes. You need to find a way to distill that down into 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You need to think about how much you care about what you're doing and how hard you have to try. We had a few people that showed me their videos of their clean pulls and their snatch pulls, and like, I could have fallen asleep. Like, if it's going to be 100% of your clean, it's probably going to be heavy, and you probably need to get yourself jazzed up to do those reps to go there, right?
Wait, it's not tempo?
No, it's not. So sort of setting those standards for yourself within training and realizing the moments when, like, yeah, I could do this way and go through the motions, or I could set myself up to succeed. The whole point of the snatch deadlifts and the snatch pulls in this phase is for you to be aggressive with heavier weight. So you need to be just as excited for that stuff as you do for the 1 rep max. And then, if you're, steps 3 and 4 are just making sure that you're moving well and that you're following a program that actually makes sense.
You're going to play how you practice. I mean, I think that's probably a great way to sum up like that whole last little bit there. It's like, if you don't continually put yourself in the situation where you're practicing as if you were getting ready to do your 1 rep max when you're doing 6x3 at 70%, like, you're not going to have it when it actually matters, and you need to be able to go to that place. So, like, treat each lift as if you're doing a 1 rep max, even if it is percentage work, because that's how you're going to make sure that your body is in tune and moves the same way consistently every single time. Because again, you don't want to be the person that hits a random PR because, like I said, the birds were chirping and the sun was shining. You want that person to be you want to be that person that can always call upon the same motor patterns every single time. And you build that through your day-to-day practice. And knowing that, just because we write 6x3 in the site doesn't mean you can only do 18 reps. There are a lot more reps building up into that.
Yeah, when I think about this, I kind of compare it to the mantra that we kind of have when it comes to a weakness, and that usually applies to like a machine or something monostructural. It's like you can't call it a weakness unless you've spent enough time to try to fix it. And that's easy to say when it's like, I hate the assault bike, I hate the rower, I hate skiing. It's like, well, you could usually beat yourself into the ground with that pretty much every day, or at least be on the machine every day for a period of time that is beneficial to you.
Right.
You can't do a 60-minute snatch session every single day. You're just going to beat the shit out of yourself. But you can get the PVC pipe, you can get the barbell out, and like, you got to apply the same kind of mentality to the barbell as you would the machine work and just get your reps in, get good reps in. There's, the perfect practice makes perfect, not just practice. I would say if you're just practice makes perfect as your mentality and you're not accounting for how well you're moving, then obviously like everybody can understand how that would go downhill quickly. So,
and if you're looking for step number 4, you can head to misfitathletics.com and find yourself some programming. I think my final thoughts are just that the people that have reached out to me or talked to me about this topic within the last month or two, I know enough about them and have seen them move enough to know that I personally believe in them and know that they can lift more weight that they currently are. So if you're listening to this, you probably know that I'm talking to you specifically, and you move well, you're strong, you're dedicated.
It's funny too,
get your ass in there and lift more weight.
It's funny because I don't think that I've ever seen an example where somebody's like, it's like a clean and jerk. It's like, my max is 275. Like, why can't I clean and jerk 315? Like, I just can't get under it. It's like, well, you're not strong enough. Like, that's a 40-pound difference. It's people who are just like, I can clean and jerk 265, but I can't, for the love of God, clean 275. And it's like, it's a small right. number. It's not like you're being unreasonable about what you possibly could hit. It's like, it's just whether it's a mental barrier or legitimately a physical barrier. I think it's more commonly the former, but it's like you have the capability. You guys are right there. It's just do the things that we talked about in this podcast. I guess that's it.
Boom, roasted.
Boom.
Find a victory and use that to keep marching along your path. Because if you're focused on where you currently are, if you're only focused on where you're trying to go and not where you currently are, you're going to get lost in the trees and basically get discouraged. So try to find a victory at every single session that you did. And if you haven't had one yet, or if you're in the middle of that session, you're like, you know what, literally everything's gone to wrong. Let's take some weight off the bar. Let's find a way to find that victory. Find a way to get those reps in, because again, you need to be able to stoke your own fire, and finding ways to succeed is how you do that. So to me, when you get in that situation or you're having some frustration, find the wind. There's always a win.
Find the wind.
Find the win in anything that you do, and you're going to be more motivated to stay along your path.
The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken.
You almost fucked that up, didn't you?
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Michael Jordan, Drew Crandall.
How do you almost fuck it up if you get it exactly right?
Hey, you look nervous. Yeah, I'm not saying you fucked it up. You nailed it, but you look nervous.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co, Black Friday, 25% off, the only sale of the year, sharpentheaxeco.com, everything site-wide, 20 to 80% off. Do we know if it's Thursday or Friday? No, we don't. But after Thanksgiving, once it's midnight, it is Black Friday at sharpentheaxeco.com.
After your Thanksgiving dinner.
PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit to save on all of your orders. And as always, the best way to support us is to head to misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace, or teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs.
Hey.
I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what you thought of the episode and what you'd like to hear next. We'll see you next time.